2, 1, action.
Good evening again, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Recommended action that the Board of Education leaves executive session and returns to the business meeting at 8:24 p.m. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Omar? On the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Fontana's 7th grade class will be leading us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Born and unborn.
Before we continue, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Griffiths, who will tell us a little bit about Ms. Fontana's class.
Yes, so as you mentioned, that was Jocelyn Fontana, 7th grade home and career skills students. I know that right now they are developing their knowledge and skills needed for food preparation, including food and kitchen safety, nutrition, the proper use of tools, and the principles of mise en place, which I had to look up this French term, and it refers to the organizational steps a chef utilizes to set up their workstation prior to cooking. I'm sure that our 7th grade families are happy that one of Jocelyn Fontana's requirements is for her students to make meals at home and take pictures of the preparations, the fruits of their labors, and most importantly, their dishwashing techniques. Since it just happened this past Tuesday, I'd also like to highlight a great accomplishment of Ms. Fontana as the advisor of the PVC Student Council. In partnership with Joanna Straub, the director of the Village's Senior Recreation Program, they co-hosted a smartphone tech support session for senior citizens, where students were the teachers for the afternoon, helping our local residents maximize the potentials of their smartphones. Also, later this month, Ms. Fontana is going to accompany 7 members of the PVC Student Council to the Human Rights Institute for Middle School Student Leaders, sponsored by the Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center. And the 2 main themes will be respecting the individual and how to be an upstander. So it's a busy month for Ms. Fontana, and our students certainly benefit from her professionalism. So we thank you very much, Jocelyn Fontana.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, well, before we begin our meeting in earnest, I would like to take a moment of silence in memoriam of Debbie Liebert and Gail Whitkin Sasso. They are 2 members of our Croton Harmon School community. Debbie was a beloved teacher at CET for 12 years, and Gail was a board member from 1990 to 1996. She was vice president of the board in 1993 and president of the board in 1994. You could take a moment of silence. Thank you. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
On the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain? Motion carries. We will now move into reports, and I'll start off with my president's report. So good evening, everyone. Thank you to those of you joining us in person and those of you watching via live stream. You might notice that Superintendent Walker is not sitting here next to me this evening as he usually is, but it is for a wonderful reason. He, Dr. Dubeck, and our CTA president and high school art teacher, Ms. Jennifer Moore, are in Washington, D.C. representing the Croton Harmon High School at the National Blue Ribbon Schools Award Ceremony. As you know, Croton Harmon High School was named a 2022 Blue Ribbon School, and it's an honor that we are very proud to have received. So I'd like to take a moment to highlight some recent student achievements. 2 of our high school students, Ben Prince and Parker Stevens, were approved as probationary active firefighters assigned to the Washington Engine. And then in athletics, our varsity girls tennis team were league champions and sectional semifinalists. Cassidy Croce was committed to play lacrosse at SUNY Oswego next year. Jacob Jones was recently nominated as a LOHUD Player of the Week for football, and Xander Matthews was nominated for the USA Football Heart of a Giant Award. So we would like to wish them all congratulations. In upcoming events, The district will continue the future facilities project tours with the PVC tour on November 8th at 4 p.m. and the high school tour on November 9th at 4:30 p.m. Also, the high school will be holding its Hall of Distinguished Graduates ceremony on November 10th, honoring Mallory Lefland and Joy Gresham. Mallory Lefland is a project manager who worked on the Mars 2020 mission, and Joy Gresham is the literary trustee to the estate of Lorraine Hansberry. And then rounding out November, we will also be having the high school musical, which is the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, which will be held on November 18th, 19th, and 20th. And ticket information for that will be coming out soon. And then I'd like to just share a few updates from our PTAs. From the CET PTA, the fall book fair begins tomorrow, November 4th, and runs through Thursday, November 10th. They will also be running this month a Thanksgiving pie fundraiser and the annual community turkey trot at Spencer Field on Thanksgiving Day. The gift card fundraiser that we mentioned last month will kick off later this month with orders due in December. You can check their website, www.cetpta.com, for details. If anyone has any questions or wants to help coordinate any of those events, you can email them as well. The CET PTA is also looking for someone to chair their winter craft night, so in December. So if anyone is interested in that, please reach out to them. From the PVC PTA, PVC will be selling spiritware through the Booster Club website, Booster Club site through November 6th. You can find that link on our agenda and actually through, I think, through Booster Club as well. And they will also be coordinating with the high school PTSA on their upcoming spiritware sale. PTA's next meeting is scheduled for November 21st. The high school PTSA is still actively encouraging parents, staff, and students in the community to become PTSA members, and you can find information on their website. They connected with many students at the recent volunteer fair and hope to enlist their help in upcoming events. As I mentioned just a second ago, the PTSA will be selling spiritware. They will be pre-selling that online and it will be distributed before the December break. And they will also be hosting a staff luncheon in December. And then the Croton Harmon Special Education PTA, or SEPTA, will be presenting a Meet the District Related Services staff on Thursday, November 17th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the PDC Library. And Rachel DePaul will be there to give an overview of pupil personnel services and make staff introductions. So all parents are welcome and new parents to the district are encouraged to attend. And that concludes my president's report. So we will now open up hearing of the public. Speakers may use the podium to address the board on school district matters. And we just ask that you state your name and you can provide your email or address on the sign up sheet. And please just limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Do you have a 3-minute clock?
Yeah.
Yep.
Coming up. I'm sorry.
My name is Ed Riley. I live in Truesdale Drive. Haven't been here a while. Couple things I was, by monitoring the school board and the school board committees, you pick up a sense of personalities and who runs the school board, who has more power than others, etc. But the last meeting that I saw about advocacy, there were 3 members in the meeting. 2 members jumped on another member, and it must have gone on for 15 minutes. It was a classic case of bullying, trying to intimidate somebody. I was there, and I figured out how to disrupt that meeting if that happens again legally, without getting arrested. And it was over charter schools. And the scandal of that was the 2 people that advocate that charter schools should not be funded by local people. Now we know they're union schools, they're public schools in this state. Expressed, whether they meant to or not, we don't care what happens to those kids in these crappy school districts. And this school district has had its problems in the past. I can distinctly remember, especially this high school. And to leave those students in those schools with no way out is despicable. And so that was sort of scandalous to me. The second thing is, COVID lockdown, there's a, the message went out through the Atlantic magazine, and then Sandy Weingartner, the head of the teachers union nationwide, they want amnesty for the COVID policies, these draconian COVID policies. They cause so much disruptions in the schools. A 7 to 9% drop in mathematics scores, 2 to 4% drop in reading scores nationwide. Scores like this we haven't had for 40 years, so like the inflation rate, right? And to trap kids in schools that are the crappiest schools in the United States, and in this state, Buffalo, Rochester, we got a couple here, Elmsford, Portchester, Yonkers, blah, 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 we go on and on and on. So what I would like to see from this school district is it had affected everybody. It said, kids locked up at home in front of their computer, they had mental health problems, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. I would like to see a comprehensive report on the effect of the COVID policies in this school district and what it had on the students of this school district. The taxpayers deserve it, the teachers deserve it, the administration deserves it, and the children deserve it. A comprehensive report on what the effect was of COVID policies in this school district. Now, we know so many of these policies were scams.
Mr. Riley, your time is up.
We're terrible. This will be continued. But if you already have that report, I'd love to have that.
We will now move on to the superintendent's report. We will have a video update from Superintendent Walker.
Good evening, Tiger community. It's wonderful, as always, to have a chance to share my superintendent's report for this evening's Board of Education meeting. My apologies for not being able to be there in person, but I'm happy to let you know that the reason I'm not there in person is because I'm in Washington, D.C. with high school principal Dr. Laura Duback and high school faculty member and Croton Teachers Association President Jen Moore, as we've been invited to D.C. along with the several other schools around the country who are being recognized along with Croton Harmon High School as National Blue Ribbon Schools. So we'll be happy to be here to represent our fantastic district and all the amazing work that went into this special recognition. And as always, it's wonderful to have a chance to share some of the many, many points of Tiger Pride that have taken place since the last time we were together to share this kind of report. Beginning with the launching, official ribbon cutting, and first ride of our district's first electric school bus. So we welcome Evie to our bus fleet. Please take a look out for that bus, number 170, the dinosaur bus, as it travels throughout the school district in the days and weeks to come. We had a fantastic opportunity to come together, administrators, board members, members of the Transportation Center, students from our CET chorus led by Marlena Horton, as well as wonderful community advocates and political leaders to celebrate this outstanding and special moment for our entire school district and our community, the first of what we hope and know will be many, many electric school buses as part of our fleet in the time to come. And I wanted to take a moment to recognize and thank Denise Harrington Cohen for her outstanding leadership and stewardship of this exciting initiative, along with the Board of Education and retired Superintendent Dr. O'Connell and all the members of the Bus Electrification Task Force. Welcome to Evie. It's an exciting time to welcome our first electric school bus to our Tiger fleet. Also want to make sure that we offer a Tiger welcome to another new member of our faculty and staff, in this case, Mr. Darren Santucci, custodial team member at CET. Before joining us on our team here in Croton Harmon, Darren was a stonemason for close to 30 years, brings a wonderful work ethic and great energy and wonderful diligence to his work every day at CET, and when he's not doing that great work at CET, he enjoys spending time with family and being outdoors. Welcome to the Tigers, Darren. We also paused on Monday of this week to celebrate Halloween at all of our schools and across the district. It was great to get a chance to be in all of our schools that day and see all the fantastic costumes, our Tigers dressed up in many, many different ways, and to celebrate that special holiday together. And thank you to all of our faculty, staff, students who participated in that fun celebratory day. We also want to make reference to our phenomenal 3 building administrators, our building principals, in celebration of National Principals Month, which ended on October 31st. Dr. Duback, Mr. Plotkin, and Mrs. Bianchi provide fantastic, visionary, dedicated, caring leadership. And while they may make the work look easy, I assure you to be a principal is a complicated, ever-changing, phenomenally important job. And they do it with such grace and pride and talent. It's a true privilege to get a chance to call them my colleagues and to know that every day the students of our communities come to schools that are led by the 3 of them makes me feel very, very good. And so we thank each one of them for their leadership in celebration of National Principals Month. We also wanted to make reference to and thank Dr. Jared Blair, as well as PVC Student Council leader Jocelyn Fontana, and all the members of the PVC Student Council for taking some time on 2 occasions recently to meet with members of the Croton Senior Club to provide some one-on-one or small group technology support. We know that our young people, being digital natives, are uniquely positioned to help all of us, really, regardless of age, to better understand the technology that we interact with every day. And this is a first effort for us in this area, and the feedback has just been overwhelmingly positive. So I thank our Tiger students for their leadership and all of our Croton seniors for making sure that they did some learning themselves alongside our students, and want to thank Joanna Straub and Marilyn Grantner from the Croton Senior Club for their collaboration on this. Also want to make reference to, again, our future facilities project, and ask our community to mark your calendars for the vote on December 13th from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at Croton Harmon High School. We continue to share more and more information this week through an updated question and answer document, a new superintendent's video update, as well as posters about the project that you'll be seeing at businesses throughout the community. We also hosted the first of our facility walkthroughs at both Spencer Field and CET that are open to any member of the community who would like to sign up through the communications that we've sent and that the village has sent. If anyone has any questions about the project or about the timeline for future opportunities to tour the facilities, please feel free to contact me directly. And we appreciate your consideration of this project for the Tigers of today and tomorrow. And finally, I wanted to take a couple of moments to share with the community an overview of my goals for this school year. And as you are all aware, we've tried a new process as it relates to focusing and looking to galvanize activity within our system this year, and that's the development of 4 guiding questions. And so my goals are based around focusing work that is in response to the pursuit of answers to each of those questions, beginning with how will Croton Harmon schools develop into a future-driven school system. And 3 of the areas of larger work there are underway as I speak. The first being the development of a new strategic plan, which we had the opportunity alongside many colleagues to share an overview of with the Board of Education at its October 20th work session, as well as the development of the Future Facilities Capital Project, designed to align the future of our learning spaces with our vision for the future of what teaching and learning should look like in a future-driven school system, and to utilize the budget process to enhance that kind of vision. And we look forward to, as we begin the budget development process, to really think through the kind of priorities, the kind of conversations, the kind of vision that we need to have for the future and how those get reflected through the budget process. The second of our guiding questions, as you know, is how will we create opportunities for thoughtful risk-taking by students and educators in the pursuit of joy, interest, and passion in our schools. In my opinion, such a critical question for where our school system should be going and focusing our thoughts and our energy now and in the future. And 3 of the larger scale areas, and as it relates to my goals toward the answer to this question, include the use of these guiding questions, and to take a look at how that is inspiring new and systemic efforts within our system, as well as how it helps to synthesize some of the efforts that are already in place. As well as for the first time this year, we are prioritizing and focusing on allowing faculty time to pursue their own passions as it relates to the work of our schools and how their interests and their passions can help to drive the culture of our schools as one that's based around inquiry and curiosity, as well as enhance the learning experience for all of our students. So we look forward to continuing to see how that rolls out and to be sharing further information about the impact of that approach in our schools during the course of the year, as well as kind of the rethinking of the district's new innovation team led by Dr. Blair as a sort of incubator lab to come together, bringing together a group of outstanding thinkers throughout our community and our faculty and staff to consider and support new ideas, whether they be related to the pursuits of passions by faculty, an idea that an administrator may have, or any other member of the community would like to think through related to the functioning of our schools. Utilizing that innovation team as that kind of thought partners is one that I look forward to seeing the impact of during the course of this year and into the future. Our third question, as you know, is how will we promote meaningful connection and engagement with all members of our school district community and nurture a supportive environment that actively works through an equity lens. And a couple of the larger scale action steps here, including refining our communication strategy to reflect further use of video, imagery, and graphics in addition to written content. We want to be responsive to feedback that we hear from the community about the amount of written content that we produce for our community, and to be responsive to that and thoughtful about how we share what it is that's happening in our schools. And I think you'll continue to see an increased use of video and imagery and graphics with outstanding support from our technology and communication specialist, Greg Cavallari, to continue to be responsive to this moment and the needs of our community. As well as envisioning and creating a process for genuine and authentic student voice in the development of our budget. And I look forward to spending some time with the high school student advisory committee to have some initial conversations around how student participatory budgeting can become part of what is part of the DNA of our system. We talk a lot about student voice and student agency, and we want to make sure that as we develop that financial statement of our values, our school district budget, that student voice is well reflected within that process as well. So we look forward to bringing that to the budget process for the first time this year. And the final of our 4 questions is how will we identify and implement effective approaches to ensure connection and engagement with our school district's families whose first or primary language is other than English. And 3 of the proposed action steps there include furthering the work of our district's Family Network Outreach Team, led by Director of Pupil Personnel Services, Rachel DePaul. This is a group of community stakeholders who have come together to share ideas and to share their vision, to develop a collective vision across our community about how we further engage those families within our community, as well as to develop and implement approaches to gather input from our families whose first or primary language is other than English. And we've started to do that already and look forward to continuing to put together that evidence, that data, that information, and how it informs our future work, as well as to consider through the budget process whether or not some additional personnel support might be needed to effectively connect with those families within our community, and the establishment potentially of a liaison between our families whose first or primary language is other than English and our schools is something that our team, both the Family Network Outreach Team, the administrative team, and the board will want to make sure that we're considering throughout the course of the budget process and into the future. And so that is in another action step as it relates to the pursuit of an answer to this question. If anyone has any questions, of course, about any of my goals for this year, the work of the district in general, the future facilities project, or anything else happening in our fantastic schools, always please feel free to reach out to me via email or phone so you can set up a time to come in and see me in person. Thank you as always for your support of our fantastic schools, and have a great start to November. Thank you, Tigers.
Thank you, Superintendent Walker, for putting that video together, and thank you, Greg, for helping him put that video together to present for us this evening. I'll now turn it over to Molly Levitt, our student ex officio member, for her to give her report.
Thank you. So to start off, Halloween was just a couple days ago, and at CJ Shifts, it was great. Everyone really got into the spirit of it. The seniors, we were cops and warders. That was our theme. So if you were wondering why a bunch of senior guys were coming to school dressed as mimes, because that's what I thought at first when I forgot about it. And I was like, oh, hi, robbers. Okay. It was really cool, and a lot of people really got into it. Also, I know that Mr. Ander's digital photography class and the Spirit Club, they worked together to make these sort of photo booth stations right here in the community room. And they took some really cool pictures with everyone in their costumes. I'm sure you can check them out. They look great. Moving on, also over October, we had Unity Day, which was a day to, which was a day against bullying, and people wore orange in support of anti-bullying efforts and supporting kindness. And we also had Red Ribbon Week, which where a bunch of the students, we signed the anti-drug pledge. This was at CGS and PVC. There was education on the dangers of drug abuse, and it was basically a week to emphasize saying no to drugs and alcohol. On top of that, we had the community service fair in October. There were a lot of organizations who had representatives there, local organizations like Caring for one, and then plenty of national organizations who wanted students to get involved. I noticed a lot of students, including myself, who already had their required hours fulfilled. They were still taking pamphlets and signing up for opportunities. So it was a really great way to get the students involved, and people were really engaged and really into it. Also, the juniors took their PSAT on October 12th. God bless them. I remember doing that. I hated it. Happy I'm not junior anymore, but good luck to them. I'm not sure when the scores come back. I think December. So yeah. Also, the first marking period for the high school quarter one ends November 7th. Sorry for reminding the parents of that. Also, the fall sports in the high school have finished up, I believe in the middle school too, and at least in the high school, winter sports are starting on November 14th, so that's really exciting. And as we mentioned, the fall musical is later this month. We're putting on the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. We're having performances Friday, November 18th, Saturday, November 20th, both those are at night, and then we have a Sunday matinee on the 20th. So tickets will be on sale shortly. Information is going to be sent out via K-12 alerts and posted on the website. Also, if you are a local business, there are opportunities to be a sponsor. So you can reach out to, if you're interested in being a sponsor, you can reach out to Mr. Katzman, Mr. Brian, or you can even email any of the students who are involved in the musical, including me. Yeah, if you're interested in information on that. And finally, I'm going to do a little update on what Student Faculty Congress has been working on over the past few weeks. We actually decided in Congress that it would be a good idea for me to include this in my report, just so the board would get a good idea of issues that the students have been working on. So first, one thing that we have been really interested in instituting are push notifications for the portal. One problem that we noticed, that we've been noticing with a lot of high school students is that when we're stressed out, a lot of us are already stressed out about grades. And if we know that there's a big quiz grade or a project grade coming up in the portal, we'll just be checking that portal multiple times throughout the day. Push notifications, the idea would be to alleviate stress. So students wouldn't have to keep constantly checking the portal for updates, and they just get a notification whenever a grade came in. So we're going to be in talks with Dr. Blair and administration about that. And another issue that has been plaguing the student body is hallway congestion. It is worse than it sounds. It literally makes people late to class every single day. There's this one main stairwell in the high school, and it's just really slow moving. It's a mess. So it's been a problem since last year. Last year we did like a video PSA on it, and it seemed to help her a bit, but the problem is back. Part of it is that, there's a new class of kids. There's the freshmen who didn't see the PSA and are still new to this school, and they like to stop in the middle of hallways. But yeah, we're just looking at different ways to alleviate that problem and just different things that we can do to help, basically. And another issue that was actually brought to Congress by another student, Ariella Solchern, I have to give kudos to her because she really advocated for this and took a lot of initiative, was an issue with accessibility. So if you haven't noticed, there have been a lot of injured high schoolers lately, a lot of people on crutches, wheelchairs, casts. And at one point we were out of elevator keys. So students who needed the elevators to get to class were having a real issue getting there. But we talked about it in Congress, and then with a lot of help from Ariella Solchern, who did take a lot of that initiative, the issue was resolved. We brought it to administration and it was fixed. And finally, we have started planning for the ping pong tournament, which raises money for the Greg Rodriguez Foundation. And that usually takes place in the winter. Usually, I think we're looking at early February. So, and part of fundraising committee is they have started planning that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Molly.
Just if I can ask Molly a question, so as I get from you, the elevators are only accessible for students who have disabilities or
Yes.
issues with a key, and so
Yeah, like
you have to get the key from the office.
You have to get the key from the office or the custodian. I believe it's the custodians, I think. But it can't, that makes it so, you can't just have, there's only that one elevator, so you can't have anyone who just feels like riding the elevator that day taking it. So they have the keys to ensure that only the people who need that elevator are using it.
Gotcha, thanks.
Thank you. We will now move into new business. So we have, first up in our new business is the NYSBA Board of Directors Area 10 representative vote to fill Frank Harrington's unexpired term. There are two people who have been nominated. So before us reading out an action on how we'd like to vote, I didn't know if anyone had any thoughts that they would like to share with regard to these two candidates. It is Deborah Gotti and Cheryl Brady. If you recall, last year when we were voting on the Area 10 director, Deborah and Cheryl and Frank were all candidates for, and Frank won last year's election. But is unable to, Frank is no longer on his local Board of Education, so they're looking to fill this unexpired term. So Deborah and Cheryl are again back and are nominated as candidates.
Yeah, I just thought the material that we have is in executive content. And I think it's appropriate for the public just to very briefly describe each of the candidates, which I'll do by reading, I guess at least part of their bio that was provided to us. Cheryl Brady is a member of the Southern Westchester BOCES Board of Education, joined in 2019. She served for 16 years on the White Plains Board of Education and served on various committees. She is has a bachelor's from Purchase College and a master's and PhD in mathematics, and used to teach at Purchase and now works as a consultant for a consultancy international education company. And Ms. Gotti is a member of the Rockland BOCES Board of Education, has been so for the last 6 years, has served on the North Rockland Central School District Board since 2005. She is an administrative assistant for an architecture firm, I don't know where they are, and had previously worked as village clerk for the village of Haverstraw. Former president of the Rockland County School Board Association, and served, I guess, on the Haverstraw Stony Point School Board of Education, which seems to be simultaneous with being on North Rockland. I don't know why that is, but that's basically what her bio is. So those are the two candidates. Obviously, the board has seen this ahead of time, and I thought the public should know as well.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Does anyone have any comments, or I guess would they like to put forth one of those names for us to vote on? Josh.
These are both highly qualified
Absolutely.
candidates for this role. But of the two, I think that Cheryl Brady's experience is greater. And that it is more aligned and with the thoughts of our district and with, as a district in Westchester County, I mean, I can only say that I think I'd prefer for us to have a representative at NISBA who understands the needs and concerns that are local to our county.
And if I could just add that our prior area 10 director, who is now the NISBA president, Peggy Zedeby, was from Rockland County as well. So it and was the area 10 director for some time. So I think probably having the switch to a director who is from Westchester County would be beneficial as well. In my opinion.
I am in agreement. I don't want to cast aspersions or denigrate the work of Peggy Zugby prior to Frank there for a short time, but I think I agree both on experience and the fact that Cheryl is a Westchester representative and has worked, I believe, closely with West Point
Mhm.
in the work that,
Yeah.
that it's done over the years in advocacy and otherwise.
Anyone else have any thoughts?
I mean, I just concur with what you guys are saying, and it's important that we have Westchester representation. I know that Southern Westchester is very different from Northern Westchester, with respect to the size of school districts and sometimes the needs. But I think they're both qualified candidates. If it weren't for that distinction, I'd probably have a tougher time deciding, but I'm in favor of Cheryl Brady being
So,
put forward.
so I guess we should have a motion.
All right, so should I put forth then? I will put forth the motion for Cheryl Brady. All right. Recommend an action that the Board of Education of the Croton Harmon School District hereby cast their vote for Cheryl Brady to fill the unexpired term of Frank Harridan on the New York State School Boards Association, NISBA, Board of Directors representing Area 10 for the 2022-2023, and authorizes the district clerk to authorize any documents consistent with this motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, we'll now move on to 3.2. Recommended action resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the 2022-2023 building use waiver fee for the Catholic Youth Organization, CYO.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
I have one question on this piece. So this is for a waiver of the fees. And so CYO already uses facilities for payment.
I believe
Right.
currently they use their own facilities. They don't currently use district facilities.
But they have in the past. They've used PBC for their CYO games on Fridays, the 7th and 8th grade, because their schedule doesn't allow. But in the past, they've always paid the very nominal fee of $30 as a usage.
Got it.
This is, I think, the first time that they've actually applied.
This is the first time they have applied for the waiver.
Got it. And because they've used the facilities before, we can presume that in the past, there's been an application to use the facilities. all.
No, my understanding is this was the first time they've applied.
For waiver,
A
but
waiver.
for use,
But
but not
they
for
have
use
used our
of.
Correct.
facilities. 'Cause
Sorry,
it's-
Tracy.
They have used our facilities because it's our children. They
Right.
are
So
students.
Yeah.
so they would have had to have filed forms for that, applications, et cetera.
Under our policy, anyone who wants to use our facilities files a building use application,
Right.
provides
That's what I'm
the
referring to.
information, provides the proof of insurance, et cetera, and then if they fit the criteria, they are granted. This is a request
This is a request for
to
the waiver
basically
of those
waive the
fees.
$30 an hour.
Right, and the review that you were just talking about has been done and approved at some point in the past.
The building use.
The building use, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it will be completed for each activity that they have in the buildings as well,
So-
moving forward. So they still need to file the application for building use. it may be done, let's say it may be one form for 5 consecutive Friday nights, but they still need to complete the building use form.
So under regulation 1500R, that puts certain constraints on the sorts of activities that can be conducted on school premises. Right, so,
Which I assume were outlined in the.
which are in, well, I'm sure the application refers to the policy.
Does it? Does the
Mhm.
application say what the restricted uses are?
Well, the application
Business
references the
sports.
policy.
Yeah,
So yes, so, and it says you will use the facilities in accordance with what is provided in policy.
So it creates certain limitations for a CYO that they would need to adhere to.
Mhm.
Right, so they can't use it, they can't conduct religious services, for instance.
Well, that's not the purpose for which they have been seeking the permitted use and conducting religious services. Services is not a permitted use.
It's actually
in-
explicitly
under-
prohibited use.
And I'm
yeah.
On page 1 of 1500R in the prohibited use section.
But that, so that would be clear to CYO, given their previous application and that the policy was pointed out to them and all of that. So I assume that that process has been done. This is for the waiver of the fee for the. current use.
And to be clear, they would still be responsible for janitorial fees?
If it was not done during regular janitor or custodial working hours, yes.
Will they be charged?
Mhm.
Okay.
If it's outside of the regular working hours,
So-
so within regular working hours.
Yeah.
the-
Friday night, it would not be because we have staff on site. But if it were a weekend, yes.
And I think in the past, we at times have had custodians on duty in the high school on Saturday mornings. I don't know if we do now, because I know there was some use of facilities on Saturday morning that was not charged because custodians were here. But when a custodian is not here, the custodial fee is charged, and that's on the application.
Can I just deviate from that for 1 second? How is that different from like the PTAs? Like, for instance, tomorrow night, CET, PTA is gonna be holding book fair, and I know that the PTA is charged, even though there's custodial staff on site. They're charged custodial fees for their after-hours events. No? Yes, in the past.
During
No,
working hours?
not during,
If it's
Okay.
after hours.
if it's
there-
after hours or if it's weekends.
Okay.
Right, so I think the other thing that I think we want to re-verify with CYO is clause 21 on page 5 of regulation 1500R, which is that consistent with policies of the district unless specifically authorized or permitted by operation of federal or state law, the applicant may not discriminate on the basis of race, color, sex, age, religion, national origin, citizenship, or sexual orientation in the participation in or attendance at any activity or event in which the district's facilities are used, unless such discrimination is a bona fide qualification for participation, e.g. restricting participation in children's theater production to children of specific ages. So I think that's the other item here that could potentially be. Which we need to make sure before we approve any use of the facility, that CYO is actually open to any student in the district.
Who are not members of the.
But it gives priority to Catholic students. Yeah.
It's open to.
And non-Catholic students are not allowed to play in the playoffs. Yes, non-Catholic, teams that have a majority of non-Catholic students are not allowed to advance the
A
playoffs.
majority of non-Catholic students.
Correct.
Okay, so.
So
it's
I
not
think
that
it's
they're
like
not
7
allowed,
out of 12. They have 7 out of 12 and they can advance to the playoffs. 7 out of 12 Catholic students per the parish's religious education roster. So that's whoever's enrolled in the religious education roster. So there is that component to it.
So they're really two, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure I understand. Can you just, so essentially, if you
It's
are
a
not,
Catholic youth organization that gives priorities, it gives priority on the basis of availability of teams and coaches, right? Because you can only have a certain number of recommended players on a team, to registered Catholic parishioners at Holy Name. And the Westchester County statewide, like the league that they participate in will not allow teams. So you can, like in the past, they have had teams at Holy Name who did not have a majority of players be Catholic players,
Mhm.
right? But those players, those teams are not eligible to participate in playoffs.
which would mean,
regardless of the record of the. it's just
Regardless of the
about-
record, if you do not have a majority of Catholic players, you are not allowed to participate in the
Mhm.
playoffs.
which would mean
I
that they're not
think the-
using the
well-
facility because they cannot be in the playoffs in that situation, but it doesn't totally answer the question raised by Josh.
And that may be for recruiting purposes. So if teams are recruiting outside of the league and outside of their parish for the sake of advancing to the playoffs, I think that is the basis for that rule.
I don't know what the basis is.
So what we have before us is the facility use waiver fee. But this is for the waiver, the building use application would still need to be submitted to the
Yes.
district.
Yes.
And just to be perfectly clear with the public and everyone else, what is the fee? It's $30 per hour?
It depends on the location that they're
It depends
using.
on which gym you're using.
So, I mean, historically, they've used PVC,
Yes,
right? Unless it's for that clinic that they do. And that's the high school gym that they use at that point. So what are the fees
30.
associated with
I
those?
believe it's 30 or 35, and the high school's 55.
It's
Per
30
hour?
30 and 55 per hour. Yeah.
Yeah, we approved that in the reorg meeting.
Correct.
But so on
They just,
the,
they need a place to play, they really don't have a place, you know, the teams. and
Sure.
But in the past, they paid the nominal fee?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just not, this isn't about approving their use. This
No,
is just
it's
about
about-
waiving the fee.
Correct.
but I guess now there is a question then about whether their recruitment policy and playoff policy conflicts with this regulation in 1500R.
Well, the playoff, to Neil's point, playoff policy, their playoff policy their playoff process wouldn't conflict with our policy because then they wouldn't be using the facility.
I don't know that.
Has that
Right.
not happened in the past? Have they? I mean, is it really that every time they use the facility that someone is reviewing whether this rule is being abided by?
That's true. Does anyone else have any thoughts?
I gotta be honest, I'm not super keen on building use fee waivers in general. And this one is somewhat fraught. I don't think I have any other questions.
I mean, there is also the point that the right, that the facilities would be used largely by our students.
That is true. Yes.
there's that consideration as well. If no one has any other points, we've got the vote and a second. Can I get all in favor? Aye.
Can I see the eyes? Sarah and Neil.
Opposed? And abstain. Thank you very much.
So does that pass?
It does.
Yes.
All right. We will now move on to 3.3, which is recommended action that the Board of Education approves the students and staff, the Quebec Club of the Pierre Van Portland Middle School to attend the Quebec City Winter Wonderland in Quebec City, Canada, February 19th through 22nd, 2023.
So.
Second.
On the question,
I think this is the first trip after.
I was gonna say, I have
Really
no
excited.
questions, but yes,
Yes.
it is our first sort of overnight, long-term post-COVID trip, so it's very exciting to see that back. Yeah. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. We will now move into donations. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $500 from Stephen and Leslie Pollock. $250 as a contribution to the district-wide chess tournament / math clubs, and $250 toward the Mandarin program at Croton Harmon High School.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation of $200 from Eric Kohler and New York Life as a contribution to the Carrie E. Tompkins General Fund.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries.
Before we proceed, I have a question for for Denise.
Yes.
While I do appreciate, and obviously I greatly appreciate all the donations that our school district receives. And I think it's important to acknowledge them. I do note that we have at least some that are periodic. And I wonder whether we actually need to approve those each time, or could we approve them for the year? Or should we? I don't know whether we should, but and how do we, I mean, I know we're not allowed to solicit for donations in that way, but this is obviously a matching donation
Right.
that he set up through his place of employment
We are required to have them approved by the board.
for each actual distribution.
And I think that would be appropriate. And, you know,
If we get it as separate distributions,
Right.
then yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
As you said, we are very grateful for all the donations that people make on behalf of our schools and our students. And we will now move into the consent agenda. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the consent agenda items.
So moved. Second.
On the question?
On the question, Denise, and forgive me if I asked this last year, what do we do with our disposed fixed assets? The list has a lot of laptops. What happens with those?
So we contract with a firm that wipes them out
Mhm.
and either repurposes the parts themselves or restores the machine themselves. But we have a contract with them under, I believe it's under our technology department that ensures that they are wiped.
They're where? Are they sold or are they just disposed?
I think a little of both.
In my previous life, I think, get the name right now, I'm not gonna mention the name, but we contracted with a company that would wipe the laptops, but then they would buy them from us. Because there's a recyclable component. Laptop. So it's something to think about. I didn't think of that.
Well, I believe Dr. Blair has
Yes, I
noted it
can-
before, but we can ask him to provide updated information. as well.
I can definitely do that.
Yeah. There's something else on that same subject that just came to mind. I think I saw somewhere about a Croton Harmon High School student who takes laptops and rebuilds them for donation. It's just something in the back of my mind. I think if we had the ability, rather than just disposing of them, if I'm correct in what I remember, and Molly, I don't know if you have
I'm not
heard
sure.
that, and I may just be making this up, but even if it's not a Croton student, who is, and it may have been like in the
think
village.
it's I think it was in the
Gazette.
I think it's
Or
tablets,
Gazette.
as I recall.
Well, but whatever it
Yeah.
is, if there are things, where they could, instead of being disposed of, donated for use in the community, which is permissible under our policy, that's something we may want to consider. And also, thinking about, just like BOCES is always looking for junked vehicles for, to have
To repair.
to repair in
repair,
their auto mechanic, if there's that resource that they would, want to use that computer equipment for, for instruction, that might be something worth looking into.
Unfortunately, there's an abundance
I know,
of old.
I know, but if we're not chunking them, then we can find something else
With
and
the-
we can feel better.
With the increasing commodity, the increasing commodity value of rare earth metals,
Mhm.
the economics around recycling computer parts is changing. And it's becoming, whereas for a while, it was actually cheaper to just dispose of them and than it was to recycle. But that's changed somewhat. And I'm sure that the companies that we dispose of are thinking about what they do with their waste stream. But it would be interesting to hear what our actual disposal companies, recycling companies do.
So we can, Dr. Blair, you can follow up with Dr.
Yep.
Blair and we will get some information back.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, back to the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. We will now move into the closing of the meeting and we have our second hearing of the public. If you would like to speak, you can use the podium and please keep your comments to the minutes.
Ryland, first out, Brad. Comment regarding CYO of the events that are held in the high school. From groups in the public, most of these groups are discriminatory. If you collect blood for the Red Cross, many people are disqualified from giving blood. If you had sex with a man, there's a questionnaire on the Red Cross, you can't give blood. If you have a group for the elderly meeting there, elderly usually are considered 55 and above. That's a select group, Boy Scouts, majority boys, Girl Scouts, majority girls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just to that point, so the vote was surprising. Anyhow, the item I'd like to deal with is the item of censorship. A former board member brought this up when one of your present board members continually went on tirades about people he didn't like, religious groups he didn't like, people had opinions they didn't like, people took positions on COVID he didn't like, the fire department, police department, whatever. And that board member said, we have to deal with this. I would like to know what happened as a result of that, because in a meeting, he was appointed, that same individual was appointed to establish and investigate the policy of this board, right? When dealing with electronic communications by other board members, which I find incredibly ironic. Item 2, the item of censorship, a board member to my left here. In reference to that item, said I believe in censoring people. For the most part, I don't, unless you're a public official, non-paid, and you're in an educational institution. You gotta keep your mouth in tow. However, you have to deal with this matter of censorship, because censorship in the United States is widespread. And as my sign says, it's usually aimed at a minority opinion. So let's just look at this. Google and the prioritization of searches for political purposes and for ideological purposes. The censorship of people who question the origin of COVID, where it came from. For a year and a half, they were censored if they suggested it came from where 75% of the scientists think it came from. If you have questions about climate policy, energy policy, which has always put us in a dumpster, you were censored. If you have questions about election irregularities, unless you're the former candidate of one particular party, female, who questions, say, the 2016 election, or if you're the candidate in Georgia who questions a state election, say, a senatorial election, you were censored. So we have to deal with the question of censorship. Time.
Yeah.
We have to deal with the question of censorship because your students are supposed to learn. And I suggest the best way to do that is argumentation and public debate.
Thank you. We will now move into board reports. So we'll start off with advocacy. I know we haven't had an advocacy meeting since our last meeting, but I think Neil will give us an update on the NISBA annual meeting.
Yes, the NISBA annual meeting on October 17th began at 4 p.m., ended at 9:45 p.m.
A little bit over that, 6 p.m.
A quorum was maintained throughout, and each of the resolutions that we discussed or that we dealt with as a board back in our October 6th meeting were discussed and voted on, except for 2 that were not moved. And I can fill you in on that. I thought just to save time, while the first thing I will say is that the 2 resolutions sponsored by this board support regulation legislation to amend the education law to standardize the deadlines for filing candidate petitions. That was resolution number 21, was adopted by a vote of 197-232. Our other resolution to support legislation to establish the last day for candidates to file a petition after withdrawal so that the district clerks have enough time to prepare for the election, including printing machine readable ballots and absentee ballots, was passed by a vote of 190-40. And as you can imagine, I spoke on each of those to present our positions.
Briefly, I'm sure.
Well, they give you a 2-minute limit and they, you know. So I just thought I should mention with regard to the matters that we had discussed in our meeting on October 6th, where we had discussion, what happened with them, so that we're aware of what happened. As you will recall, we had a discussion about whether or not we supported universal pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds, and we supported that resolution. An amendment was made and adopted or added that said that the universal pre-K would be fully funded by New York State, and that was adopted handily by the delegates. We also, as you will recall, discussed 3 resolutions involving charter schools that we had extensive discussion both in the advocacy committee and then brought to the board and discussed as well. The first one was introduced by Albany and Buffalo school boards And that resolution stated, NISBA supports legislation that would require local school district consent for new charter school applications in districts with a large percentage of charter students. That the delegates approved that resolution by a vote of 202 to 28. The resolution that was a sunsetting resolution that stated NISBA opposes legislation expanding New York State's charter school laws, also proposed by the Albany School District, was adopted by a vote of 245 to 35. And resolution 32, NISBA supports legislative changes that reduce the impact of New York State's charter schools on traditional schools, was adopted by a vote of 206 to 23. There was discussion by the delegates as to what each of those resolutions meant, including the concern about the fact that the charter school formula or requirements that monies be transferred dollar for dollar to the charter school from the school district when the school district has certain fixed costs that it has to meet, was brought up by several people, probably, if I remember correctly, including me. I do try to speak more than once. There were five resolutions that NISBA had recommended that we had opposed. Okay. Or actually, yeah, that we had opposed. And the first one about adding arts and music education as a common school branch, that was adopted handily, 223 to 52. The resolution that we discussed about licensed security guards shall be trained with a credential certifying knowledge of laws, rules, and regulations was rejected by a vote of 126 to 146. Resolution concerning SED providing oversight over special ed, parent and rules of conduct and enforcement procedures. We opposed it. It was adopted 212 to 52. And the resolution with regard to supporting legislation to allow for school board members to receive a stipend for their work as trustees, which we opposed. There was discussion, as we had about the trying to attract people to board service, particularly if they needed help in childcare and so on. But the delegates voted that down, 96 in favor, 170 opposed. And the resolution regarding legislation at state or federal levels to reform the current gun laws, to strengthen background checks, etc. There was an amendment proposed by Garrison that would have expanded even more the language. That amendment was defeated, and then the resolution itself was defeated by a vote of 111 to 135. Anecdotally, maybe I should, back a little bit. A number of people came up to me at the NISBA convention last week and said, I remember you. I saw you at the business meeting. I liked the things you said. So,
We like the things you say too. Neil.
well, thank you. I guess that's just on the advocacy part. The other thing that I mentioned we got today, Mary, do you want to talk about the email blast that came from West Platte?
No, but I do have a comment on what you just read.
Okay.
first, I guess, or a question. I'm sure you saw in the debate this week that Governor Hochul was asked whether she supports lifting the cap on charter schools, and she replied yes.
Okay.
So I was just curious how we reconcile that and and what is the approach there if the governor herself supports lifting the cap?
Well, the governor has apparently, and I did not see the debate, so I didn't know she said that, but the governor says that she will propose presumably, or have legislation proposed next year, so she's governor, to lift the cap on charter schools. And NISBA will take the position that it is not in favor of the governor's proposal, just as, NISBA may advocate against things that are proposed by the governor, and did for a long time with Governor Cuomo and things that he proposed. And, will either, express their position and go through that lobbying process to see, how it ends up. The fact that the governor supports that doesn't, which was stated, of course, after the business meeting, does not change NISBA's position, because NISBA's position is in essence on the record, and will be on the record unless and until the delegates, until it sunsets, or until the delegates consider a different resolution that, that the delegates vote in favor of at the next meeting or a meeting thereafter.
I just want to kind of take a minute and reflect on the vote regarding the gun proposal. Because it was, I'm sorry?
It was close.
It was very close. It was 111 to 135. I think that we should watch this closely. I think that even in our new, in our facilities, in our future facilities plan, we're looking at revamping the entrance to our high school to essentially prepare ourselves against like an unwanted shooter. Our children are going through drills every single day to protect against guns affecting them. And that's a close vote. I really think that we should look at this differently. I understand that NISBA's position on this is to say that it doesn't fall within the realm of our advocacy, but it impacts at the very least our budget. It definitely impacts our students, and it impacts our teachers and staff from the perspective of workplace security. So
I just want to point
I
out
would
that
love for our policy committee to take a look at drafting something that would allow for school boards and our school board to be on the forefront of changing how we advocate as a school board and how NISBA advocates on behalf of this, because this is like every other unfunded mandate that we're talking about. You're talking about our unfunded mandates, like our budgets are being impacted by how our security has to be revamped in this day and age. And I don't think that you can talk about one without talking about the other. And I want to just commend our student representative, because Molly, you spoke to that point when we were discussing these NISBA resolutions, and what you said as a student with regard to your experience was extremely compelling to me. So I don't want that voice to go unheard.
to respond, or just to give a little more background. Part of the discussion that came up during the discussion on this was related to the language in the resolution that says, quote, as well as laws that will restrict guns from those under the age of 21.
Right.
And with a large number of school districts in rural areas, and people said, well, I hunt.
No, I
And my family hunt and my kids hunt. And so a lot of or some at least of opposition that was expressed was because of the language that seemed.
Absolutely.
Okay, but I also want to add, there was a resolution that was adopted by 217 to 14, which we were in favor of. Resolution 23, NISBA seek to initiate legislation at the state or federal level that would provide dedicated funding to be allocated for school safety measures, including staffing. So one of the things that NISBA is on record of to the delegates is exactly that, as an unfunded mandate, so to speak, or as a mandate.
Right.
Where we provide a safe school environment, that we should receive funding and be able to get funding for that. And I know one of the things that in the proposed bond resolution is additional security cameras and the vestibule of the high school and blue lights and so on, which would fall within that. I think that's really not so much a policy issue, that's really an advocacy issue. And I think our advocacy committee is the one that would be.
Well, I'll respectfully agree to disagree with you on
You
that. I
think
think
it's a
it's a
policy
policy issue,
Okay.
and I think that in your capable hands, a well-drafted policy might be received, and I think that is where the direction I would love to see our board take, but I'm only one member of our board. I just want to go on record as having voiced that.
I mean, I would also agree with Anna that we have to do everything we can on this issue and explore any possibility.
And I think we discussed about the last meeting, we discussed about, right, some of the issues regarding that specific resolution were around some of its broad language. And so, you know, perhaps looking at that and looking at ways that we could really think about that and craft a resolution for next year's annual meeting that would be a little bit more nuanced.
So-
And I think that that's something that certainly our advocacy committee could.
Was there feedback that would help inform the revisions to?
There was a lot of broad discussion on it. I don't have the full, I listened in the gallery. I don't have the full details on it, but I did take some quick notes, and I have a sneaking suspicion this one probably took more.
No, I didn't take a lot of notes. I was too busy.
But yeah, I think there was, there were some things that could inform that. To Neil's point, like, right, like the under 21 and things like that would really impact and seriously impact, right, people in rural communities who do have who do hunt. So sort of thinking about some of those things and thinking about the ways that you can, you know, that's something I think that we can certainly take on and have further discussions as a board.
We have two avenues. One is, well, actually three avenues. One is policy. Another is resolutions of this board, which we've done before on many a topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as well as putting forth a resolution for this one.
Absolutely.
And I suppose we could also seek support in West Putt as well.
Yeah, and
West
then
Putt
there
has their own
were
policies.
several people from West Putt, you know, in our area region who had spoken on this resolution, so I think it's something we could definitely discuss with other local boards as well. Is that all for advocacy?
Well, I guess the only thing is, we were talking about this. I did note that one of the things that West Putt sent to probably all of us today, certainly I got, and I forwarded to the other advocacy committee members, Sarah and Mary, was a suggestion that the issue of the elimination of funding for free breakfast and lunch for all students effective this school year is still out there. And they are calling on school districts to advocate to get a reversal or change in the US, I guess, the Department of Agriculture rescission of the funding that we had for the last couple of years to provide those meals for everyone. And
I
so,
think that should have gone out to everyone from West Putt, and you can also find information about it on their voter voice section on the West Putt website.
So how?
It strikes me that this is something that ought to be that perhaps we should do a resolution on sooner rather than later.
Yeah, my question was gonna be, how do we? I mean, I want to consult with Denise to make sure that that didn't impact anything negatively, any of our planning or any of our funding. But to the extent that we advocate for that, and for the families in our districts, I think that's a worthwhile cause. I agree with Josh.
We can put that.
You put that on
We can put
advocacy.
that on advocacy's agenda.
These
to
policies
discuss.
I'm not on that I'm giving work to.
All right.
Well,
All right, so then we can move on to board development. We had a meeting, it was the same night actually as the annual business meeting. So we will be looking to get a date on everybody's calendar with regard to a retreat. So be on the lookout for that, because that will be coming fairly soon. I think there was something in the week, this past week, we briefly about it as well from Steve. And then also looking at trying to do perhaps for people who are available, maybe a little social get together ahead of the 18th of the opening night of the high school musical. So for people who were coming to attend the musical.
And that's the
board
Friday
and-
evening.
Yeah, that's the Friday evening, so board and administration who are available for that, so be on the lookout for that information. And that's all I have from board development. I'll turn it over to communications.
Communications report, did we report last time? We haven't met, no, we haven't, because we had a business meeting. Communications met, we discussed communications regarding the future facilities plan, and plan, and the December 13th vote. And updating the frequently asked questions, the community walks, making sure that we reach all of our community and various stakeholders. We continue to have discussions about events that were upcoming regarding going to the community versus like having the community come to us at the Black Cow and such. One of the events that kind of caught us by surprise, not by surprise, but perhaps next year planning in advance to have board members at the Harry Chapin Run, to have some kind of water station set up by board members of the Harry Chapin Run, or a table with information regarding the board at the Harry Chapin Run.
Or you could come walk with me and Denise.
Or we could run alongside you, Denise. That was really it. I can't remember. Theo did the 10K. Oh, good for you, Theo.
I recommend a Gatorade table.
Orange slices by the board or something.
There you
like that. That's really it. I mean, our focus right now is obviously getting information out to the community regarding everything contained in the plan, in the capital vote, and yeah, that's really it for now.
All right. And audit has not met since the last meeting, or have they?
No, we have not met since the last meeting, but we are planning on meeting sometime, I think, later in November.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for that. But on communication, is there, I guess, two-part question. First burden, technological, can we add a calendar invite to the December blast that we're sending out, like voting on December 13th?
I did want to go back actually as soon as I finished. I didn't actually report on our social media presence. Greg Cavallari has done a wonderful job doing that. There's also been some updates to some of the individual school pages to make them more efficient, which Greg had already undertaken before the meeting, and then we chatted a little bit about some of that. I don't know. That's a good question. We're meeting next Wednesday, and I'll certainly ask, but I'm sure that Greg and John. Yeah.
The issue is that I can see that we would need some legal guidance on is a calendar invite is not going to go to everyone who is a voter in the district.
But you can send out a link that says, if you want to be reminded, you can click here to add, like.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking we would have to make sure that it's not.
That it went to the community.
It
as a
went to the
whole.
community as a whole, not just, for example, to the K-12 alert.
This is,
And that's there, there are issues as to whether it's really appropriate to do that if someone could then claim with kind of reminding and targeting only a certain segment of the community. So that's really a
I don't think that's,
I will
that's not really
say,
any different versus any other communication that we do, where we strive to have as broad reach as
Yeah,
possible.
but it's a calendar invite is something
No, no, this
different,
is,
because that's pretty much.
It's a reminder.
it's not a calendar
Reminder,
invite, it's a
yeah.
link in the email that you're already sending that says, click here to add this to your calendar.
Well, and I guess that's
Which we could
something,
use all of the means by which we reach the community as a whole.
so
in
now
general.
that the village is assisting us and sending out our communications through their network, we can actually reach the majority of the community.
right, we're not reaching everybody, we're not
No.
reaching those who are outside the village,
Right,
and we're not reaching those who are not signed up to
correct.
receive the village communications. But that's really just a question as to whether it creates some kind of an issue, or whether.
Well, we will leave
It's
that
proper.
question with communications.
Yep.
Yep, we'll get back to you. I'll
No.
report back.
Yeah, well, we'll talk.
Yeah,
talk
But it's, the legal concern was whether we can do it.
Right,
And
and
that's,
that's,
that was helpful to have that background.
But
you
it
said you
it
had two
sounds like a
things.
very
Technological
simple
can,
and
right?
logical.
I think in the universe of possibilities, it
We
is
should,
possible.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
And whoever's sending out those communications, if they can contemplate to add that.
if it's something. I mean,
That's easy.
What was your second question?
That was.
The legal. One was
Oh,
legal,
the
the other
legal,
one
got it,
that was
yeah.
legal. Thank you.
Policy has not met.
Correct.
Shocking.
Kidding.
Okay,
All right.
8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I don't care if Steve is there, I'm taking it out of the White House for meeting.
All right. Well, that is all of our board committees. So we will move on to polling of the board. So I'll open it up to polling. Neil.
Polling. Sarah,
Josh.
Sarah and I and Steve were at the NISBA convention. There are lots of things we could tell you, but I just let you know that what I am in the middle of doing, and I was hoping to have it done by today, but I didn't get it finished, is a memo or report to everybody that the sessions that I attended and things that I learned that may be of interest to board members and to administration on the various subjects or sessions that I attended. I will also tell you that I have here on this device and on my desktop, the PowerPoints and other materials for every session, so that if anyone has a particular interest in one of the sessions, and want to see what was presented, you can just let me know. The one thing is that now that they've moved to PowerPoints, sometimes they don't have as much detail. Some of them give links to, documents or cases or whatever, but some of them are just kind of very cursory, but I have them and I can make them available to anyone who wants.
And I put together notes on, Neil and I tried to sort of we tried to split up and go to different sessions.
Yeah,
as much as
we
possible.
did not go to any of the same sessions. I think I went to one session along with Steve,
And I
and
went
you
to
may have gone to one, but otherwise we all tried to.
Yeah, we
gather
tried
as
to
much as we could.
triangulate and get to as much as we could. So I can send you notes to add to your report as well. Josh had raised his hand first and then.
So I attended the CET Building Planning Council today. Our agenda items today were reflections on the CET Halloween celebrations, which took place in the front loop in front of the building, which is where they've been held for the last couple of years, whereas in the past, prior to that, we used to do it. Well, apparently, I learned that we used to always do it there, and then it moved to Spencer Field when it got really big. And then the last few years, we've done it in the loop, and it's gotten better reviews in the loop than it did when it was at Spencer. Both apparently from the students as well as
Who's reviewing?
from the students.
I would just
And-
say that it's not open to parents. I think, right, in the front there.
Yes. And it's more intimate, and sort of the feedback that was out there was that that by being a smaller, slightly more intimate affair, it's a little bit, the students feel more comfortable and less nervous about it.
Cool.
So that's one thing that's going on. The other item that was discussed was the future focused schools. We started discussing how that might impact CET, and it was sort of a freewheeling discussion of hopes and visions for the future. I also attended the other BPC, which is the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. Where a lot of the discussion was things that do not directly impact directly impact the schools there. So I suppose they do tangentially. There was some discussion of the ongoing work that the village is doing to ensure that sidewalks are brought to be into code compliance, which is an issue for our students that walk. So there's been some progress on that, and continues to be. They're working through a rather significant backlog of sidewalk locations that need work. Some of those are cases where it is a partnership between the village and the homeowner. Others are things that are on village property that are being worked on, and they are working through that backlog. There was a renewed question about the path on that side of this building. There used to be a unofficial path that ran along that wall of the building.
So for those who don't know, that's basically, you're talking about between the high school property and the houses that are below
What are you
on.
talking about between here and the track?
No, but if you go
That's
to
still
the
there.
end
From
of the high school,
No.
and then there used to be a pathway that went along the fence
Old Post Road South,
leading
went-
down to PVC,
Yeah.
and where there, I guess those streets are Thompson and Irving and so
Right.
on.
along
Back.
the wall of this building. And it was closed down and fenced off years ago for multiple reasons. It was hard to patrol. It presented a safety issue. It was also right up against homeowners' property, and some of them complained about noise and misbehavior going on back there. And so it was closed off. But the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee is interested in increasing the number of walkable paths and bikeable, I'm not sure the right word, bikeable paths for students in the district, and they were especially, they wondered whether that could be reopened. And as they said, probably not. But their follow-up to us was that, well, they asked us, as we move forward with the facilities plan, that we consider the smooth paved bike paths that allow students to pass through from this part of the village up that way towards PVC without having to go along 129 on their bicycles.
And when you say this part of the village, you are referring to
Roughly the
where the cemetery is.
CET
and
library
Right.
area.
Okay,
Um,
I just say that because the public is not gonna know.
I apologize for my gesticulation. The northeast corner of the village, toward which the area, the library, CET, and the streets up in that direction, coming down towards PVC, there is interest in finding safer routes. So that's something I think that as we continue to develop these specific site improvement plans, which I believe already include paving the gravel part of the parking lot here, we should consider if we can include in that some improvement to the bike route between here and PVC. Oh, that also renewed interest from the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee in helping the district to do walking and bicycle safety instruction for students. I know that they have collaborated with us in the past, especially at PVC. There's interest in that. And I think that's it for me and for both of the BPCs that I attended.
All right. Anna.
I attended the inaugural, ribbon cutting for Evie. I just want to again commend everybody on their efforts to get Evie here and Marlena Horton for teaching the 4th grade chorus, The Electric Slide. I was able to attend the Halloween, my final CET Halloween parade as a board member, as we were invited. I would encourage, hopefully that would be open up to all parents because it is a special day and they're only little for so long and they only want to wear their costumes for so long. So we should all get that. And I was also able to attend the community walk where DJ Goldman, our athletic director, and other members of the administration were present to answer questions to the community regarding updates to Spencer Field and to CET. So that was exciting. I did unfortunately miss the inauguration of the PVC library today, as I have work commitments, but I hope that that went well. And I know that that was long awaited for all of that. Yesterday, thanks. I thought it was today.
That's why
But I was busy yesterday. I know that there's an upcoming event at CET to honor our veterans and their service, which has also been planned by Andrea Stratner and Marlena Horton via the Kindness Club at CET. And this evening before coming to our board meeting, I was able to help set up the CET Book Fair. And I would encourage anyone who's interested to go and participate in a scholastic book fair at CET and support the PTA and books for the CET community. That's all I got.
Thank you.
I did not attend the electric vehicle ceremony, but my daughter did, and she was part of the chorus and loved it. And it was very well put together. I saw all of the images and got the report back from my daughter, who was just thrilled to be there and to be one of the first to ride the bus, and to see all of the people and excitement there. So just kudos to all of you for putting that together. It's great.
Yes, it's very exciting.
When is it gonna be on the tickets inaugural?
On the road.
Yeah.
So we are looking at Monday, but we just wanted to get some additional training beforehand. Not all of the drivers will be driving the vehicle. So we want to make sure that they're 100% comfortable in driving. So we're going to do some more driver training.
So, quick question about that, which is, since we're also going to be using the vehicle for extracurricular runs, sports runs, etc. I assume the drivers, or not just the driver who is on that run, the dinosaur run, will be operating the vehicle, but a lot of drivers may be, depending on who takes those extra sports runs.
Right, we have about 4 drivers who are comfortable right now with driving, and of course our mechanics who do a lot of our sports runs. So yes, there will be multiple drivers available.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, since Anna had said that she.
So you already spoke before.
Well, but she reminded me that Sarah and Omar and I did go to the opening of.
And John.
Oh, Josh, so
How
I
was
guess
it?
you were there before.
Why didn't anyone tell us? How did you know all about it?
Because you wrote it down there and I said, you were going to talk about it.
Well, I would just say, I got there a little late, I guess, so Josh had left and Omar and Sarah. And one thing that I really was so impressed with is how comfortable the PVZ students who were there were with the facility, with the informal sitting area with the blocks in the middle and getting together and using areas like to have a book discussion, moving furniture around. And it was really, it was not
Awkward.
awkward and it was not staff directed. The students were very natural about how they were using the facility and using what they would provide. I think it's really great.
It was a great experience. And the kids are enjoying it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We'll get a lot of good use out of that. A lot of great.
No, I think they're well, and the way that it's set up, it's very like it's very modular. So all of the bookshelves are like they're connected, they're magnetically connected, so they can also be rearranged as needed as well to create more space. And again, yeah, that the foam climbing, lounging centerpiece in the middle is a great distraction for the students, and they're all comfortable and love it.
With
I'm happy to be there,
a
so.
very strict rule, take your shoes off before you climb on the cubes.
That's what, okay.
Yes.
And the second rule is no coffee bar. We've already had requests.
My son was very adamant about the fact that no food or drink is allowed in the library. So everything will stay as nice. But yeah, it was a great event. Do you have more for?
No, just move on to PVC building planning or?
Absolutely. Go on.
I didn't say it for the conclusion of the meeting, but the part that I was there for, we were talking about introducing learning walks to the public. And what the parameters of that would look like and what the expectations that would articulate to the parents would be. To have a really good discussion with members of the council on that. And the idea is to start this in the winter of 2023.
Well, if I could just take you back for a second, because I attended the innovation team meeting, which prior to building planning council, which that was the topic of our first sort of first innovation team meeting of the year, was around the idea of these learning walks at UBC. So really using the innovation team as a kind of think tank model to think about some of the opportunities and the challenges and the questions that should be considered as we look at some of these new initiatives. So that was our first one on the list. So we had a very robust discussion about that and provided Principal Plotkin with some information to move forward. Yeah.
It's your third time, but go ahead.
I just want to, I don't want to let that. The high school building planning council did not meet.
Okay.
Because
Because Dr. Duback
Dr.
is in DC.
Duback is in DC.
Right.
I didn't want her to feel left out.
Oh, no.
I would just like to reiterate my question about the board and our access to learning walks. And I also just want to talk more than Neil does. So.
Yep, so I will work with our district clerk so that we can put together
Yeah.
a schedule that works for a couple different options throughout the year for everybody to get. And to Anna's point, I would highly encourage all of you to get into the learning walks. It's great to see what's going on in the building. So anyone have anything else to point? Anyone
I
else?
have something to add.
Absolutely.
I was actually talking to Mrs. Carrier before the meeting started. I was telling her, and there's a lot of interest from Student Faculty Congress about bringing back the board trustee position at Student Faculty Congress meetings. I know that the board, what they thought was, as part of the board's policy, as part of the policy and what we envisioned for the ex officio's position, my position, that position just wouldn't be needed because just to strengthen sort of the role of like the ex officio member. But the Student Faculty Congress and especially the president, Nick Odak, felt that it would be good to sort of have it go both ways. I would be here and then there'd be a board member at the meetings too, just to strengthen that relationship, just have double the people, why not? Also, it's also important to mention that I've been really involved in Student Faculty Congress since I was a freshman, and I'm a representative this year, but that's not going to be the case every year. I wasn't elected to this position by Student Faculty Congress. I was elected by the student body as a whole, and you don't have to be super involved in Student Faculty Congress to be the ex officio member to the board. So that may vary from year to year, and it may just be good to have a steady presence from the board at Student Faculty Congress meetings. Also, you might just find things interesting or found something that you think you would need to know that I'm not thinking to bring up. So there is interest in bringing the position back, ideally this year, but if that's not doable, it would be great if that could be back for next year.
And if you could remind the board members, it's on G days at what time?
Right when school starts, 7:55, right
7:50.
and early.
If I might,
So-
just as like a board member, I don't want to cut you off. What were you gonna
Oh,
say?
no, I was gonna say, so board members who are interested in serving on the, as a liaison, this year, if you have a board member who's interested, just email me and let me know.
Well, I'd like to just kind of quickly propose something else, and I don't know if this would work, Molly. And maybe it's part of a bigger discussion, but I think it would benefit the board as a whole, and certainly like in our roles on board development, to maybe have the requirement that each meeting be attended by a board member and that we could rotate in and out.
Yeah, we can certainly
Take
have,
turns
we
going
can
to
certainly
the
have more, that like, we could have a sort of liaison and a backup liaison, and so that there's, you know,
Yeah.
I think on the one hand, it gives you
I'm
consistency,
proposing
but
that
then
we
there's
all
like a.
take turns going to these meetings because it's the one student-run organization in our district. And I think we would all benefit to the same extent that we benefit from Learning Walks, to actually all having the firsthand experience of being there and being present and reporting back to the board regarding what they're doing.
I'm of mixed minds on this. On the one hand, having.
And you say this is somebody who's done that.
As somebody who's
Yeah.
done it, on the one hand, I think it's great to have the rotation so that we all have the experience. On the other hand, it easily took me at least 3 or 4 G days before I actually knew what the heck was going on. To really understand, and, you know, partly part of that is like establishing the relationship and, you know, sort of understanding the venue. And admittedly, the year that the 2 years that I was serving on that role were both COVID years, which made it even more complicated, even more difficult.
You
Yeah.
can't serve on any more committees.
I was going to say that I would love to do it, but she's not gonna let me. No, I was gonna say, Josh, I think brings up a good point, because part of what the role of the liaison was, the board liaison was when I was there, it was serving in that role was in part to be able to be a resource to the Student Faculty Congress about issues and matters and what was going on the board, which anyone can do as a, you know, on a rotating basis. But it was also to help when there's something being worked on over time, like discussion on the changes in the code of conduct, where, you know, the person who's there and, you know, that there are things that may want to be, that the Student Faculty Congress may want to ask and think about and come back to. That is better to have the same person. So it's, you know, we can figure out what works best.
Molly, do
Student
you have-
Faculty
I
Congress.
mean, what's your sense on it? Like, would you-
Yeah.
Again, like I can't like definitively speak for all of Congress, but I think that there are benefits to both. I think it might be good to have, again, like sort of a steady, just like one person who's sort of familiar with how our GDs operate, because it does take a bit of getting used to. So it could be good to have someone there and who all the student representatives are familiar with too, and so they know, oh, that's so-and-so, therefore trustee, representative. But at the same time, our GD meetings are open to anyone, so you could even work it out amongst yourselves if you want. If you think that would be good for all the board members to sit in on some GD meetings. You could just show up if you feel like getting up and coming to the high school at 8 AM, which is really fun. Yeah. So,
Are they on the high school calendar or is there,
yeah, well.
So you'll
well,
see
every-
that it's G-Day on
it's every
G-Day.
G-Day.
but not the student faculty congress meeting is not on the calendar?
It's just,
I don't-
the G-Day starts late because student faculty conference.
Yeah, it's
meets,
just if
so
you
it's
look at the
just kind
learning
of like-
schedule, you can
yeah.
see
Yeah.
how many G-days are. It's like usually once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's how the schedule sort of works out.
But there's no calendar invite, which is
course we
where.
can.
Yeah.
We could project that when
Yeah.
day G day falls.
So if you guys want to, I don't want to put anyone in the spot, but if you want to think about it, then yeah. let me know. All right.
I will, because Gwen's on the, yeah.
There you go.
And it also overlaps with my goal, my communications goal, which is to actually.
Absolutely, and that was actually something that Molly and I discussed in terms of,
Yeah.
making sure, increasing that relationship between
Yeah.
the board and what the board's working on and students involvement in that. So,
If,
There we go.
if I can
So then-
back up on it, but I assume given the fact that it fits her schedule, she'll be there.
all right.
I would love
So then-
that. We could go together too.
That means I'll be up at 8 o'clock.
Oh, boy.
All right, so then we will see who's staying at your meetings. All right, I think that's it for polling. Does anybody else have anything else? No? All right, so then we have items needed for the next Board of Education meeting. So our next board meeting will be our work session on November 17th. We will be spending that work session, we'll be discussing the first of the guiding questions for this year and looking at how that is being operationalized in our buildings and looking at how that is going along and how things are progressing there. So I'm excited and looking forward to it. Omar.
I know everybody's pulled in directions, especially the road in December. Any sense of when the annual report will be put together and presented?
So we had not finalized a date on the annual report. I know there was still the state was coming out with their data. So it's once all that was live, but
So we know that the New York State testing program data, just so the community knows, those tests are administered in spring of 2022. The state embargoes the data. That data was actually just released last week. We have some preliminary views through a service that we pay for called School Meter through BOCES. The data actually, looks very, very favorable for Croton Harmon, especially in the comparative analysis that I viewed against other component districts in Putnam, Northern Westchester BOCES. The visualizations on the NICEAD portal are not yet active. So compiling a really good triangulated view of that data alongside our other data is just forthcoming right now.
When do you think that would be brought back to the board?
I don't know NICEAD's timeline to know when that level. We could work on our own visualizations. Usually in the past, we've sort of relied on the front end work of those visualizations being provided by the portal. I don't have an estimated timeline right now.
yeah, the portal, the last we said we got an advocacy alert from NISBA. It was a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that they had released the data and they would be updating the portal, but that they didn't have a timeline on when all of the districts in New York State would be up, when all that data would be live. So
And there's
they
no,
haven't been able to provide that date yet.
John, there's no plan to deviate from what we've done in the past and like do these projections on our own. We would wait for that information. Wouldn't we, from NICEAD?
That's would usually be our course of action. It's pretty time intensive. We don't currently have a data visualization tool plugged into our data portal, so it would have to be basically hand compiled and
Which we will. we would let them do that, right?
Probably the most cost effective.
Yeah, I mean, typically they're released way earlier in the year, around September, so that the district can plan around any deficiencies they're seeing in the results. So this is rare that the state is embargoed that data.
I'm not quite
until
sure
November.
what the backstory was for it, but this is definitely later than usual.
Much.
But I think also to the extent that once that data is released and then publicized by the state, we would want that to be part of our report to the public. And if we were to go ahead with our own analysis and then the state sends out something, there could be mixed evaluation or mixed messages, which would not be to the benefit of the district or parents or students.
Anyone have any other questions?
Well, I think the only other thing was, we're talking about the next Board of Ed meeting. I guess particularly because Thanksgiving is gonna be in the middle there, and we're gonna, if there are things that people have to suggest, there might be issues or matters for the December business meeting. If there's anything people think of, now's a good time to.
If you have anything, for the.
And if not, of
December
course,
meeting
it
to
was-
add. Especially if there's anything that's in any committee work. I know policy hasn't moved, the other policies that were up for first reading or things like that. Just to let board officers know ahead of agenda planning,
22nd.
which is the 22nd. And again, any board member who would like to attend as sort of the third board member to attend agenda planning, please join us. I highly recommend it. It's a good way to see sort of what goes into planning agendas.
1 o'clock usually.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. usually.
Whatever date is on the calendar.
Yes.
Just to reiterate that, I did have one request for it would be nice. I don't know whether advocacy has the bandwidth to do this, if there could be a resolution concerning the breakfast and lunch funding.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Mary, do you know when our next advocacy meeting is? I didn't have it on my calendar in front of me, so
I don't think we have one
so we've
scheduled.
actually had one.
Let me-
Oh, we don't have one scheduled.
Right.
Okay, so we will need to, if we could circle back, because I know Molly was also interested in joining an advocacy committee meeting, so. If we could get one on the books ahead of the holiday season, that would be good. All right. If no one has anything else, all right, recommended action that the Board of Education adjourn at 10:21 PM.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great night.